Доброго вечора, ми з України.
Hello friends and welcome back to Ushanka's show. I'm your host, Sergey Sputnikov, aka John Wayne Cheeseburger.
I would watch your show more if you would stop rambling. You could get the same info and quality of content in your videos by cutting 2/3 of them. Blah, 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 and you do.
Recently I stumbled on a quite interesting article with comparison for the grocery prices and other goods prices between 1975 Soviet Union and 2021, so it's modern Ukraine. I don't think I need to remind my viewers that the Soviet Union was the very first country in the world that went through the socialist experiment that lasted over 70 years, and it ended back in 1991 with the collapse of the USSR. One of the main achievements of the Soviet society is that we managed to reach equality. Well, somewhat. Some people were still more equal than others, but we generally managed to reach equality. Unfortunately, it was achieved by making everyone poor. So we didn't have rich people. And we actually had a joke, like anecdote on that topic. So when the comrade Stalin passed away and he went to heaven, of course, there's already a joke. Stalin went to heaven and he meets up there with comrades Marx and Engels, and he reports, in Soviet Union, we don't have rich people anymore. And they're like, God damn it. No, the general idea was not to have poor people anymore. But because the Soviet government provided subsidized housing, which was extremely low cost rent, and some subsidized basic goods like bread, milk, it was comfortable environment to be poor. Because I look at my life of my parents, they both were working, they both were labor union members, and still we were scraping by, and they managed to save only 5,000 rubles in 20 years of their marriage, which is really not impressive considering how much they had to work and what they did for a living. After the collapse of the Soviet Union back in 1991, situation drastically changed, of course. Now we had the separation of society, we had extremely rich people, oligarchs, we had some middle class, and we had some poor people, so we had so-called stratification of society, right? And socialist economy got replaced with a free market economy or somewhat free market economy. So this is an interesting comparison to see what changes occurred in prices for basic goods back in 1975, so that's your socialist economy, versus 2021 modern day capitalist Ukraine. So here's your reference point. Back in 1975, average salary in the Soviet Union was 134 rubles. In 2021, in Ukraine, the average salary was 13,000 hryvnias, and at the current rate of exchange, which was 27 hryvnias per dollar, it comes to $480 per month. And now there's a little interesting detail. So in my previous video, when I was telling you about items you could purchase for 10 kopecks, I also tried to compare apples to pears or apples to bananas, and I claimed that 1 ruble was equal about $3.50 if you look at the engineer's salary, American engineer versus Soviet engineer. And guess what? If you take 134 ruble average salary in the Soviet Union in 1975 and look at $480 a month in modern Ukraine, it comes at $3.60 for 1 ruble. So I was very close.
A great success!
Okay, so let's compare the purchasing power of 134 rubles in 1975 versus 13,000 hryvnias, or $480 in 2021 Ukraine. So let's start with bread. Back in 1975, average person could buy 838 loaves of bread, and I need to remind you, bread was heavily subsidized by government back then. Now, in 2021, an average Ukrainian could purchase 881 loaves of similar bread, which is 43 more. So it's kind of interesting that purchasing power right now is better than back in 1975 with subsidized bread back then. So bread got way cheaper without any subsidies. And while we're on the topic of bread, I need to remind you that back in 1975, Soviet Union was spending millions, maybe billions of dollars purchasing grain from Canada, from United States. Now Ukraine became a number 5 exporter of grain in the world. So without any 5-year plans, Ukraine now exporting when Soviet Union used to import wheat and other grains. Okay, our next item is sugar, sahar, at the price of 94 kopecks per kilogram. I actually remember the price was 78 kopecks per kilogram, but mine is from 80s. So I guess sugar got a little bit cheaper in 80s. So in 1975 Soviet Union, 143 kilograms of sugar. In 2021 in modern Ukraine, it's 591 kilograms. Huge difference. It's almost 4 times sugar got cheaper in modern Ukraine comparing with the Soviet Union. Doktorskaya kolbasa, so that's kind of like a bologna kilbasa. At 220 a kilogram back in 1975, you could purchase 61 kilogram if it's available in the store, of course. You need to remember that part. Now in modern Ukraine, the price is 170 hryvnias per kilogram, so you could buy 77 kilograms. So Soviet 61 kilogram, and good luck trying to find it for sale, versus 77 kilogram now, and it's in every store on every corner. Next is rice. In the Soviet Union, you could buy 152 kilograms at 88 kopecks per kilogram. In modern Ukraine, you could buy 722 kilograms. So huge difference in rice. I'm not sure why, but it basically you can buy 600 kilograms more of rice comparing with Soviet level. Buckwheat, grechka, one of my favorite cereals, 56 kopek per kilogram in 1975. So 239 kilograms in Soviet Union versus 382 kilograms in modern Ukraine. So 150 kilogram difference. Once again, modern Ukraine wins. Alright, so next is pork. Back in 1975, you could buy 64 kilograms. And that's if you find it at the store. If you go to the market, you pay more than double and you can get only 27 kilograms for your average salary. In 2021 Ukraine, it's 118 kilograms in the store, like now it would be supermarket, or at the market, you could buy 100 kilograms. So here, once again, huge improvement because it's available everywhere now. Before, it was hard to find pork, especially at the stores. Well, at the market, you can always find it. It was really expensive. But once again, it's almost triple the buying power of modern celery versus Soviet celery. Next item is eggs. So Soviet eggs were 1 ruble 10 kopecks per 10. We didn't sell them by dozens, we sold them by 10. So you could buy 1,218 eggs with the Soviet celery versus 4,062 eggs with Ukrainian celery. Almost 4 times more. Well, definitely 3 times more. Of course, we have to talk about vodka. It's an important grocery item. So a bottle of Moskovskaya vodka was 2 rubles 87 kopecks in 1975. So you're looking at 47 bottles average Soviet celery. In modern Ukraine, it's 144 bottles. So here we got 3 times more vodka you could purchase with the average Ukrainian celery. And what about beer? Piva. So a bottle of Zhigulyovskaya beer in 1975, 37 kopecks. So it's 362 bottles. In modern Ukraine, it's 500 bottles of the similar beer. So once again, it's not double, but still you could afford yourself extra 140 bottles of beer just because you live in modern Ukraine versus Soviet Union. And from my personal experience, I noticed that something drastically changed in grocery prices in modern Ukraine, because if you watch my video about those cellars that people were even digging them and build them right in the cities, so right next to the apartment building there'll be a bunch of cellars that people made to store their potatoes and other goods like carrots, like long-term storage for the winter. And now all that is abandoned, which tells me it doesn't make sense anymore to buy potatoes in bulk in the fall or go in the village and help your parents to harvest potatoes and bring them in the city. So prices dropped so much, or salaries went so much, that people don't want to bother with that anymore. Similarly, I showed you, I think there was a storage box in our balcony in Kyiv apartment. Same thing. It was always full. We always were filling up with potatoes in the fall. Now it just sits empty, and my brother stores some junk in that box because it's just potatoes always available, good quality, and low price. So there's another huge, that's when I realized, like, okay, something did change. Although people complain, they feel like they're more poor, they actually don't act like poor Soviet people, because we spend a lot of time and energy on the basic goods like storing potatoes for the winter. I mean, digging that cellar and building a cellar, it's a lot of effort and money. Of course, most people were stealing stuff to build those cellars, but that's when I realized for the very first time that something did change in a better way. The groceries became way cheaper in modern Ukraine. But of course, not everything is fine and dandy. The huge negative change for people in modern Ukraine and Russia is change in housing costs. It used to be extremely cheap to rent apartments in the Soviet Union. It took maximum 10% of your income, sometimes even less. Now it goes up to 50% of, if people have only pension, you can eat up to 50% of your monthly pension, because now market dictates the price. And that's what the main source of complaints for the people now is, that they remember that cheap housing in the Soviet Union, and now it's so expensive that people having a hard time affording it, or they actually losing apartments, which was unheard of back in the Soviet Union. So that's how I come up with my theory that back in the Soviet days, it was comfortable to be poor. If you look at the prices, everything was extremely expensive, even groceries for what you look at the salaries, but housing was very cheap. So it was comfortable to be poor in the Soviet Union. Now, if you are poor in the modern Ukraine, it's definitely not comfortable, because you're constantly under stress, and it's mostly with your utility bills, apartment rent, stuff like that. Even my family, we own the apartment in Kyiv, so there is no mortgage payment, but still, if only be my dad living in that 3-room apartment with his pension, he'll be probably spending 80% of his pension just to pay utility bills. That's how expensive it is comparing to his pension. But of course, if my brother lives there with his family, they can afford it, no problem. But that's how the situation now, even without mortgage payment, just to pay the utilities, it becomes burdensome for people who live like on a basic income or pension. All right, that's all I have for you today. I thought it was kind of interesting to compare the buying power of the average salary in the Soviet Union versus what people are getting paid now in modern Ukraine. I was a little bit surprised, but it definitely doesn't look good for the Soviet Union. Definitely people could afford way less. And then if you, of course, put into calculation the fact that stores were quite often empty shelves, then you need to spend hours trying to find these grocery items in different stores. It was really ugly if you compare modern Ukraine and supermarkets and low prices versus what we used to have in Soviet Union. And as always, before I say goodbye, please don't forget to like this video, share with your friends, and we'll talk to you soon. До свидания. Goodbye.
Потому что если дороги будут, то по ним неприятель проедет и прямо в сердце России попадет.
Я с ними согласен абсолютно.